place. Joining me now to discuss is Executive Vice President at the Heritage Foundation, Ryan Walker. Ryan, welcome back.
Thanks for having me on.
So let's talk about this. I personally have the same energy as Elon Musk, who said if senators don't confirm the president's cabinet picks, they will be primaried, because we're coming out of an election in which this president received a mandate from the American people to make changes and to stand up to out of control government. I hate to say it, but it seems like some of the Republican senators are a part of the problem.
Well, that's right. And that's why we decided to commit $1 million to educating the American public on these nominees and the idea that the Senate needs to unite in support of President Trump. After all, as has been already discussed, President Trump was given a mandate from the American people. He won the popular vote, and these nominees should be confirmed in a timely manner. It's our opinion that Donald Trump has about 18 months before the midterm elections to really start implementing his agenda. And he needs folks at agencies, at DOD, at DHS, and like at DOJ, all across the federal government to start implementing that agenda on day one. And so we're trying to urge the Senate to get started on that work and to confirm them very quickly.
So I have to say, I've always been a huge fan of the Heritage Foundation, and many of my trips to DC, you guys have hosted my radio programs in your studios, and I've spent time with a lot of your fellows just hanging out with the Margaret Thatcher statue, kind of roaming around the hallowed halls of that really beautiful building that you guys have downtown. But on a more serious note, you are actually a great partner to presidents of both sides of the political aisle, whoever would like your assistance, in getting good governmental order underway. And having a lengthy advice and consent process for these nominees actually stymies the president's 100-day agenda, does it not?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, listen, President Trump, under the first 4 years, he was delayed in getting folks into cabinet positions, into these agencies. Again, most of the work of the federal government is done by the people leading the agencies that are under the control of the President of the United States. And so he needs folks that are going to implement his agenda, implement the America First agenda, which he has nominated. And the Senate needs to consider them, certainly under their constitutional role. We don't want to take that away from them or pretend like it doesn't exist. But they need to do this very quickly and in a very timely manner. Again, 18 months to get this agenda going and implemented so that the American people can start feeling it. And so these folks have got to be in day one. So we're actually pleased that Senator John Thune has announced that the Senate will be working 180 days next year, which is, believe it or not, a historic record for the Senate. And so there are signs that the Senate will move in the right direction, but we want to make sure that they do.
So I love the comments from the Heritage president, Dr. Kevin Roberts. He actually talked about the launch of your new campaign here. He said taking down the deep state isn't just a priority for President Trump, it's a mandate the American people gave him. And you have comments, which we've shared. I think the big deal for all of us is that we just would like to see something go well for the GOP. It seems, and I hate to be a Debbie Downer, and I'm not, but it just seems like the analysis proves over the intervening presidential administration, since we last had a Republican in office, we've seen the Democrats accomplish a lot of really major legislative accomplishments. Like they literally get to work right away and they get things done. And for the GOP, we seem to get into like Charlie Brown dirt fights with GOP against GOP, fighting amongst ourselves, rhinos kind of siding with the Democrats. After winning elections, it's almost the worst time for the GOP because there's not a lot of accomplishment that comes out of that. And we really need to reauthorize the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. I mean, there's some very serious things that have to be done. The deportation agenda to get the criminals out of the country. Ryan, talk to me about what your expectations are as we're moving into a new era with President Trump back in office.
Yeah, listen, I couldn't agree with you more. It's time for the Republican Party to start acting like a serious party that can govern and implement an agenda, something that they talk about on the campaign trail consistently, but have failed to do in Congress or otherwise. And so we're very committed to making sure that that happens. And I think fundamentally the dynamic has changed with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy and some of the others in Trump's new world that he has created and the bench that he has created, J.D. Vance being another one of those individuals. There's compelling cases for members of Congress to get in line and do just that. If for no other reason, then there's a lot of money that can be spent in congressional districts across the country to make sure that they do that. And that's an existential fear for many of them. And I think that will compel them to sort of start doing exactly what you and I are discussing here.
I agree. And so, last question here. So grateful for your time today from the Heritage Foundation. So good to have you. You are also writing on heritage.org about this. The use of pro forma sessions to prevent the check and balance process for advise and consent in the U.S. Senate. When they're not doing their jobs, you can use recess appointments to get people in office, and basically they're acting head of the DOJ, acting secretary of this or that. It gives them 2 years to kind of work the room, whip up votes, whatever you would like to call it. But if they use the pro forma sessions to prevent the recess appointments, then that is an end run around a check that the founders gave to us.
Yeah, listen, pro forma sessions were started by Democrats because they didn't like some of the appointments that George W. Bush was making during his administration when the Senate was in recess. And so the Democrats created what we view as sort of a fake procedure in the United States Senate, where they're in session, but they're just gaveling in and gaveling out within minutes, so that they can maintain this essentially a fake session of the Senate. And, that was started again under the George W. Bush administration, and it needs to end. The Senate needs to get back to their regular order. This is a constitutional ability that the president has, and we need to get back to how the Senate has historically functioned, allowing for the president to make some of these appointments if necessary to continue the government's activity and especially the executive branch's activity.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, if you're concerned about this and you think someone might bring it up over the Christmas table, you can go to heritage.org. The links are over in the show notes at stacyontheright.com. You can find all of Ryan's comments from his colleagues at Heritage, Steve Bradbury, and of course, comments from Dr. Kevin Roberts, who is the president of Heritage. The website's heritage.org. And Ryan, Merry Christmas. Thank you for coming on. We really appreciate your time.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Great thanks to the Heritage Foundation for their work there. Turning now